All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen. I am the Director of Education at RoboLink, and I know I've been getting a lot of emails about integrating CoDrone into your curriculum. So whether you're teaching elementary school, middle school, high school, maybe even college, this webinar is about how exactly to do that. So first, I'm going to go over what you need in your classroom. So you'll first need You'll need a CoDrone, okay? You could do one for every student if you don't have the funding, one for every 2 students, 3 students, whatever works for you. We're going to go over that later. And then what you will also need for every CoDrone, you're going to need 4 propellers, 4 motors. You're going to need motor guards. Well, propeller guards, because that's going to keep your fingers from getting sliced off. And then you're going to need batteries. We recommend about 3 batteries for every CoDrone. We're going to go over that later. Battery chargers, that's just one of these guys. Pop the battery in. That's it. How dare you? Our CEO just walked in. Do you want me to move over?
No.
Okay. And then if you're teaching a lot of students, we have multi-battery chargers on our website, robolink.com. You can get a bunch of those there. That's really handy if you have multiple students flying at the same time. And we also have propellers, motors, and motor guards, propeller guards, spares of those on our website. Next, you are going to need Bluetooth board. And then you're going to need a computer, a Windows, Mac, laptop that this will work with. You're going to need USB, micro USB, that will just go in here. If you are teaching CoDrone Lite, you're going to need to upload Snap. And then if you're teaching CoDrone Pro, you're going to need to upload Arduino. We're going to go over that later. For CoDrone Pro, and one of the batteries just fell out. That's amazing. You're going to need one of these remotes for every drone that you have. So this comes with the CoDrone Pro, and you're going to need 4 batteries. This one just fell out. For every remote. We recommend at least screwdriver, Phillips head, I don't know if you can see that, and a nut fastener, just in case these screws on the remote start to come undone. And you're going to need to start setting up some obstacles. So like just PVC pipe, maybe wood from Home Depot, whatever you can get, whatever you think will work in your classroom. We use PVC here just because it's easy. It's like super easy to disassemble. So I believe that is all you need. Oh, if you have accident-prone kids and you're using the CoDrone Pro for the remote, if you go on Amazon or like one of those like random cell phone stores, you can get wrist strap hand lanyards, and that you can loop it around like part of the Bluetooth board, and then you will be set. You won't drop it as easily. So classroom size, we recommend about 15 by 15 by 10 feet. But if you don't have that, maybe fly it in the hallways, scare the principal a little bit. That'll be fun. Just try to keep whatever you have around in the flight area kind of clear, because there's a chance that you're going to be flying into stuff and you will knock things over, and the more space you have for this, the better. So what you should be doing before you have kids, if you have access...
Before you have kids. This is going to... It's going to be an education course.
Okay. Yeah. Before you have kids with you in your classroom, if you have like a free period or anything, if you want to save some time, some class time, and if you have access to everybody's laptops, Windows, Mac, whatever. Oh, okay, really quick. We recommend Windows or Mac laptop or desktop, whatever you have in your classroom. Snap, we're going to have a Chrome app for that very soon. Wes has more information.
Coming out next week.
Next week.
We are finishing up everything. We've only got a few little things left. Last time we talked about it, and we're knocking out all those issues, and we're gonna, depending on how quickly the whole approval process goes, it should be out next week. So we'll send out a newsletter email announcing that.
Exciting. Okay, so that's available. That will be available for Chromebooks. Unfortunately, we don't have anything like that for CoDrone Pro with Arduino, and these probably will not work on tablets, but if you want to test it out, go ahead, let us know how it goes. So we recommend installing all of the programs, so Snap, Arduino, any libraries that you're going to need for Arduino, and then all of the drivers before you have kids testing this out, because it will take an entire class period. Someone will get frustrated. There will be a meltdown. It will not be fun. So if you can get that out of the way, that would be awesome. If you can't, then it's going to be a very good lesson for your students in perseverance. We also recommend connecting one drone at a time. Do you have it? Okay. So this is going to be a lot easier in Snap, because if you go into Snap, and you can go on our page at robolink.com, go to Learn CoDrone Lite, and then you can download Snap. And then what you can do, and you would also have to download the driver too. You can connect your drone. It's going to come up with a number, and you can write that number right here, so you always know which drone the students are connected to. And we recommend doing this one at a time with each drone. We know it's going to be a process, but when you have a lot of students in your classroom and they're all connecting to drones, you want to make sure they're connecting to the right one, because that could go wrong really quickly. And I think we just did it with like the sticky part of a Post-it note. You could do it with painter's tape, masking tape, whatever is going to stick on to here well and easily. Then before you teach, make sure everything is fully charged, because the batteries are only 8 minutes and you want as much flight time as possible. And if you have stuff hanging from the ceiling, like I know a lot of teachers have like paper sculptures, they might have like models of the solar system, atoms, whatever, you're going to need to move those, because the CoDrone will fly into it at least once. So the CoDrone does have some limitations. The first one, there is a sensor in here somewhere. I'm not going to bust it open today.
I can do it.
You can do it. Okay. So it's going to see the floor with like black and white. And if you have a lot of sunlight coming in your room, or if you have a really shiny floor, that might get kind of, I don't know how to say it, like destabilized, like your drone might start swaying and then it might crash. So we have carpet on our floors. That seems to work really well. If you have like a wood floor and there's not like a ton of laminate on it, if it's not super shiny, that should be okay. If you are in a school that has a tile floor, you're working in a gymnasium, whatever, usually if you have like some kind of rug, or if you put some paper down, it seems to be okay, and it minimizes the amount of crashes that you're going to see.
One thing I wanted to mention is we can talk a little bit about the sensors, since I just took open the drone, but depending on which version you have, you might have this one where it has just a circular sensor right there. That one's the optical flow sensor, and that is basically pointing downward and checking for patterns. And that's why what Kristen mentioned is if the patterns are like clearer, like if you look at our carpet, like that. Oh, there we go. So if there's a distinct pattern, it'll help stabilize better.
Right.
And then also if it's non-reflective, it'll be a little better for well, actually that's the other sensor, but basically if there's a distinct pattern for this one, the optical flow sensor, that'll be better. And then if you have a different one, I can go grab it in a bit.
Okay.
But if you have a different one, it's going to have that same sensor, but then also another one next to it. That's the infrared distance sensor, and that one's going to be better on non-reflective surfaces, and because it's going to check the height of it and then try to stabilize the height.
Yeah. Yeah. So that will help with the drone going up to the ceiling as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Yeah. Okay. So, and we're breaking our own products over here. Okay. So the drone cannot do a flip in the air. We're working on it. We're going to talk more about flips a little bit later and how it might help you out with cutting fingers open. We said this in our weekly webinar last week. Please do not go outside with this drone because it is connected with Bluetooth. That's how it receives all its commands. So if it flies out of range of the Bluetooth, it will perform the last command that it received, and that might not be the command that you want it to. That might be the command that has it going into a tree or into the freeway. So
it'll run the last command for 8 seconds.
Oh,
and then once it realizes it's not getting any more commands, then it'll shut down.
Yeah.
But 8 seconds is a lot of time for a drone to
exactly.
fly into traffic or into a tree or across the wall on the other side of a fence that you can't get to.
Yeah, exactly. So don't go outside with it. It's also very small. And yeah, you took it apart. So it's very small. It's not going to be as air resistant as a much bigger drone. So we recommend keeping it indoors, and that will still work really well for your classroom and whatever you want to do with it. Definitely to minimize like really hard impact crashes, try to set up landing areas with some kind of landing pad. So that could be cardboard, that could be gym mats, pillows, whatever you have around to just minimize impact. That will help a lot. And we actually have a lot of challenges with landing on a landing pad. So that will give your students a visual to kind of aim for when they're flying. And then again, if you have problems with your CoDrone, we did a weekly webinar last week all about troubleshooting, so definitely watch that. That's a lot of our frequently asked questions. We have a ton of links on the website. I know there's a video about how to check your drone if there's a problem. And then if you still cannot find the answer to your question, we are available at support@robolink.com. Anything to add? About that troubleshooting?
Oh, about troubleshooting?
Yeah.
Sorry, someone's heading out, so I'm waving at them. Let's see, troubleshooting. We're gonna create something where you can submit your questions, and you're gonna be able to pick like, oh, I'm having issues with connections, or I'm having issues with stability. You can categorize what your issue is, and then it's gonna jump into our ticketing system.
Yeah.
So we're gonna put that up soon. I'm going to be focusing on fixing up the website in the next month.
Awesome. Okay. So now is kind of like the best practices part. We highly, highly recommend before you do anything with your students, before you even think about like formulating a whole unit or lesson set around this, that you go onto our website, robolink.com, you go to the Learn section, you can pick CoDrone Lite, and that's going to be the block-based coding with Snap, or CoDrone Pro, that's where you're going to need this remote with Arduino. And then you actually need to try the CoDrone out. before you teach it to your students. And that gives you an excuse to fly a drone in your house, in your school, wherever. But it's also going to help you catch any weird challenges that the kids might have. And you can think of a way to teach it to them. So when it happens, you know what to do. And then if you have access to a kid that is not your student, so if you have your own child, if you have nieces or nephews, cousins, the kid you babysit, whatever, have them test it out as well, because this is made for 6th through 12th graders or 4th through 7th graders if it's CoDrone Lite, and they are going to have so much fun, and they're going to give you a very realistic interpretation of what you should be expecting in the classroom. But on that note, you have to realize that students, like, this is definitely like STEM projects. It's very STEM oriented. They're probably going to fail on the first try, and they need to know that that is totally okay. So even if you have to keep reinforcing it and be like, it's fine, don't worry, you know, because like for me, STEM is kind of about like going back to your mistakes, figuring out what went wrong, fixing it, seeing what happens. And it's definitely cyclical. It's definitely a learning process. But the only way a student is really going to fail is if they don't try with the CoDrone at all, or if they give up, because they will always be learning from this. It's going to teach them a lot. And so with you, because your students are not going to be the only one getting a motivational speech today, especially with computer science, technology classes, it's okay if a student is going to know more about Arduino or Snap or drones than you do, because they can teach you. And it's okay if you don't always know the answer, because that's a chance for you to kind of model like how to properly research and how to properly learn from others. And you have to realize that we're always going to be here for you too. So if you have questions, like, let us know. We can help you out.
We'll always be.
And we're always here. Yes. Your heart. And then, especially if you are kind of going up against the budget, which I know a lot of teachers are, or you have a lot of kids in your class, we recommend pairing up your students. So having one drone for every 2 students. So that's going to keep your costs down. That's going to keep like the noise level kind of. All of your repairs, because of like something will break, that's going to keep your blood pressure down. And so that's also a really good chance for students to learn about collaboration and teamwork. And I know code.org has a really good video on pair programming and how exactly to do that. So that will teach your students a lot of skills that they need to know.
Such a good skill.
Yes.
Yeah, pair programming is super important, just as engineers in the future too.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be working with people that code differently, that that might have different ideas, and or they might be better at, or they know certain algorithms to solve a problem that you don't know. And
exactly.
being able to have kids practice communicating that while solving the same problem is a very realistic skill. Yeah,
and if you have students with different skill levels working with each other, so one kid has never programmed before, the other one, that's like their basically second job or something like that, they can learn a lot from each other, and that might be more than you could ever teach them as well. Not that you're not doing a good job, but kids learn a lot from each other, so try to keep all of that in mind. Okay. So we have tips from our own CoDrone instructors, as well as other classroom teachers that we've talked with. We went over this last week, but if you have a reacher grabber tool, that might save your life and your fingers, because it's going to help out with anything that will get stuck on the ceiling if you have that problem, or if it gets stuck in like a really unfortunate place where you cannot stick your hand in, or behind a shelf, yes, wherever it ends up.
Under a shelf.
Oh God. Yeah. So that's going to help you out a lot, and that will also keep your fingers safe, because I know from experience these propeller blades are nasty. They hurt. So that will save your fingers as well. And just know that when you're teaching, there's going to be a lot of happy chaos going on. Like the students are going to be really excited. They're going to be talking, but at some point you're going to have to end class. So if you have any type of smart board, what I usually do is I throw up a timer on the board. Like I really like Google Timer because it can go full screen. And then students can see how much time they have left without you having to yell over everybody. So for coding, the CoDrone is intentionally supposed to go a little bit slower just so you can kind of see the code as it goes through. But we recommend spacing out your code with delays because if it receives too many of the like commands at once, then it's going to get confused and then you end up with crashes. And you always want to minimize that.
Oh yeah, like one thing that that we like to do, especially is if you're doing a like fly forward and then you want to turn and fly forward, we always put delays in between them.
Yes.
We're thinking about probably just making that a default thing. Like if you're sequencing, you're covering sequencing, like fly forward, turn left, fly forward.
Yeah.
We like to put delays between them because what happens if you don't do a delay is it's going to fly forward and then turn with that momentum still, and so you're going to get a lot of like unclear movements. And I'm seeing a lot of likes for that.
Yes, go Wes. Okay.
Franklin Barbecue.
Oh,
totally unrelated, but Franklin Barbecue is delicious in Austin. I went there for a conference.
This is not about your barbecue.
All right.
Okay.
Back to drones.
But he knows his food. Okay. So.
Very long lines. Though.
Yeah. Oh God.
All
right. So make sure you always have a kill switch in a snap. There's just something you can be like when like I press the space bar, stop anything but this code, stop. And then in Arduino, CoDrone Pro, that might be a little bit more difficult, but having a kill switch will stop a lot of your problems. It will kill a lot of your problems. That wasn't funny. All right.
A lot of the default program is so if your joysticks are facing that way, is this little button right here will be your kill switch. You can set it to whichever ones you want, but you've got an infrared sensor here, so by default it's shut off. Like Kristen said, it's going to save you a lot of trouble because if it gets out of control, you can just go bloop.
Yeah, and then your drone will plummet down, but that's okay. Okay. So, we like when we were students or when you were students, like the teachers always told us, like, oh, make sure you save your work all the time. Make sure you save it. If you are working with CoDrone Pro and Arduino, make sure you're always verifying your code. So that's the modern day equivalent, because that's going to help your students catch a lot of errors. That's going to help with debugging. And sometimes it's like something as small as like, oh, you forgot a semicolon or you had a typo, but that's going to save them a lot of headaches for instead of like trying to upload everything later and then seeing that it's not working. And then, so there's a couple of lessons on buzzers. After your students learn about buzzers, we recommend that you integrate them into their code so they can hear where in the code they are. And that works especially if they have different tones and lengths of buzzers, because then if they have a problem, they can think about where they heard the buzzer, go back to that line, and then fix their problem from there.
For the folks that are computer science backgrounds or programmers, it's similar to doing a print statement. So saying like, print, you can say like print line 5, print line 6. Like it just prints it out for you and says like, I've gotten to this line of the code. But think of it like that, but instead with musical tones. So then it's like Kristen said, it just got to the 7th line of code.
Yeah, and your classroom will be noisier, but it's going to be worth it. Okay, so when students are done flying their drone, make sure what did you do?
Oh, no.
Make sure that you flip it upside down, because this is the one time it can flip over. Yeah. Wait, hold on. Make sure they flip it over so the battery compartment is facing up. And then if like someone accidentally pairs to it, it's going to flip over, but it won't fly. So that works, especially if you have a classroom with a lot of drones in there. And then when you are ready to test your code, one of our instructors does this all the time. He places the drone on his hand and the motors are kind of resting there. So you're not going to get your, like, unless you have your fingers like kind of clawed around it, your fingers aren't going to get hit by the propeller, and then you can feel where there's going to be a problem. So if you realize that like a couple of the motors aren't working, you can feel where they are because they won't have air circulating. So there's that. So that's all of our tips from our CoDrone instructors, unless you can think of any more.
I have one.
Yay!
If you're pretty standard classroom size, what we like to recommend is have the drones be on one side and then the students on the other side.
Oh.
And then basically, if they need to go, like play with their drone, check the motors, things like that, and they need to bring it over, like Kristen was saying, just flip it over so that if you accidentally start flying, it won't, if you're here and the drone's here, obviously you don't want it to go whoop, because then it'll hurt a little bit. So having like a fly zone and then a programming zone is a good idea.
Yes, definitely. And don't forget, batteries are only 8 minutes, so make sure you still have all your extra batteries charged and ready to go. So we are working on curriculum that aligns with Common Core, Next Generation Science Standards, CSTA, ISTE. So you will see all of that, hopefully. But if you're looking for more ideas on how to use it with your classroom, even if you're not computer science or kind of technology teacher, we have some stuff. So if you are a math teacher, I know math teachers get left out a lot. Like, you guys don't get all the field trips. You don't, like, students do not like math. We have a lot of ideas. So you can always measure the drone's flight time or the distance. You can put that in a graph, kind of graph everything out. If you can get its height, that would be even better. You can also use it for geometry. So as students progress, they are able to fly in more patterns and shapes. So you can measure the sides. You can use that to determine its perimeter, its area. If you can get the height, that will also help with volume and surface area. And then with variables, we use a lot of mathematical operations to kind of modify the value of a variable, so you can do that as well. So instead of having an actual variable, you could do like variable 25 divided by 5, for example, and kind of use that to teach your students how to change a value. With science, we talk a lot about atmospheric pressure and air pressure, so you can always use that. And we have pressure sensors that you can use in the drone. They're already in there, so that can help determine height. There's also lessons about gyroscopes and gyrosensors and how to do gyro turns that you could use. And you could also talk about the physics of flight. So mention the forces that would act on a drone, like air resistance, friction, and momentum. And you could talk about where Newton's laws would apply. If for some reason drones end up crashing into each other, I know that's part of middle school science standards. There's a part on collision, so that could work really well. With social studies, you could get like a gigantic map of the world, put it in your classroom, have students map out the flights or the voyages of famous explorers and travelers, so like Ferdinand Magellan and Amelia Earhart and anybody else that had a big, long voyage with a lot of stops. You can map that out with your class. With English, we're doing this with our lesson plans. We want students kind of reflecting as much as possible and getting their thoughts down. So you could have them write out their code with pseudocode before they actually get into a program. You can have them write in reflection logs, make sure they use complete sentences, 3 to 5, whatever you want to do, to get the experience of writing in. And that's really important for all of the standards that I just mentioned. They all really emphasize reflection. And with the arts, this is where it's going to get really fun. So you could do a choreographed drone show. So if you need inspiration, I know Intel is doing a lot with their drones. They just did a Wonder Woman show over LA. You could do long exposure light painting if you could find a way for that. And your iPhone. Okay, so
well, at least I can't remember which version, but yeah, every iPhone after a certain version can do long exposure camera.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. And then we also have FPVs. Those are cameras for your drones. So you could buy some of those from our website and you could use your drones to shoot a movie. Just don't do it outside. So we're going to have curriculum up soon. We're hoping. So it should be by the end of the month for CoDrone Lite. And I'm hoping it will be up by the end of November for CoDrone Pro. And then we're going to have better tutorials on our new and improved website, and it will be very teacher friendly. You got anything else?
Somebody likes awesome barbecue. Yeah. I feel like I'm advertising for them.
You probably are.
Oh no.
Yeah. All right. So
good thing we don't make barbecue here, otherwise it'd be a conflict of interest.
Yeah. We should.
Yeah, we have
make barbecue.
We have standards aligned barbecue classes.
Okay, so we will be back next week. We're going to be talking about competitions that you can do with your students, and we will be announcing our own competition. So thank you for joining us. We are Robolink, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Is that our sign up?
I guess so.
Okay, we're going to work on it. Bye.